Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. I don't want to bury the lead on this one, so the basic gist is don't include everything. As a dungeon master, you're going to have to do a little research and put a little thought into this stuff ahead of time. One of the reasons why I do like running 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is it reduces that volume of homework by quite a bit, especially since like so much stuff is statted out. However, you still need to take a lot of notes and put a lot of thought into exactly how you want to use the various creatures in the monster manual, which ones you want to use, which ones you want to avoid, how they might interrelate to each other, and so on and so forth. The world design is what's being basically included in the total pot of the stew that you're trying to make for your players to discover and interact with. If you don't want your game to be silly and childish, then you don't need to include stuff like space clowns and giant telepathic space hamsters. If you want it to be more sillier and lighthearted, you don't have to be including, the unspeakable nameless horrors of the void, or monsters that murder and feed upon the innocent and all that kind of stuff. The variety presented is so that you can pick and choose what you want. I do not recommend using pre-made random encounter tables. What you do is make your own random encounter tables and only include things on there that you have an idea in your head of how you would want to run that scenario should it be triggered while characters are traveling from point A to point B. If you don't really have, a good grasp on how you want hobgoblins to act, are they going to be hostile? What kind of tactics are they going to use? You just don't really know what you want to do with them. Then leave them the fuck off of it. Also, for that matter, something I recommend is when designing your own random encounter tables is to have a certain section of that table, depending on the environment, lead to no encounters. Say, what I typically do is I'll do like a die 20 roll random encounter table. And depending on the threat level of the environment in question, anything from like 11 to 20 to 16 to 20 will just automatically lead to a no encounter. I'll also sprinkle in a couple of friendly encounters in there, wandering NPCs that are not necessarily going to go hostile. And basically the lower down the roll list, closer to, whatever you roll, if you hit a 1, you get the more dangerous and threatening things. The thing is even though, there's some debate as to whether or not random counters even need to be used at all, I do feel that, especially for lower level characters, it can be kind of annoying that, they're off trying to do their little quest to find the dwarf cave on the other side of the forest, and on the way to get there, they're being continuously mauled by brown bears and wereboars and 2-die-6 lizard folk with a drake, and it's depleting their resources and kind of distracting them from the threat that they're trying to face, especially if they're encountering sentient threats in the forest, because then they might start wondering, are these bugbears going to be a threat to the village we just left? We keep running into bugbears, and kind of, stop caring about what it is they're doing. Game storylines have a habit of derailing the longer and more epic and convoluted they are. And the more distractions you place in front of your characters, the more likely they are to veer off course. And that's why I tend to, myself, go with more encounter-based adventure scenarios where, the point is, interact with some NPCs, gather some clues, do a little investigating, find the location of the thing that you're trying to, get to, whether it's to fight a monster, to end a threat to a town, or to find some lost artifact, or whatever it is, and then give them space to plan what they want to do to go in and retrieve and or fight the thing. Sometimes players will just kind of just breeze in without putting any forethought into it, and they should be more likely to get themselves killed or badly wounded. You can train how you want your players to play early on by how you want to design your encounters. But don't get yourself into the situation where you're stalling the momentum of your gameplay because you're using a pre-published random encounter table and you don't really quite know, like, oh, they encountered, you know, 1 dice 6 Aarakocra, and you don't really know what you want to do with that. Only use things that you already have ideas for. Also, if you want, you can counterintuitively play into the you know, the derailing kind of thing that happens by already having ideas for what some of these random encounters might mean if the players decide to go pursue that instead of the thing you wanted them to go pursue. Or you can use it to set up, you know, other threats that are out there that they can deal with after they deal with their initial quest. Random rumor tables are also wonderful. You want to use a combination of a couple different things going on in them, though, but they're great for world building. One thing I would do is you should split and have 2 tables that that shadow each other. One will be true rumors and one will be false rumors. You know, each entry 1 through 12 or however many you want to have in terms of what kind of die roll you want to do for the rumors they find, the volume of rumors that are to be available. You want them to kind of like key off each other. There'll be a true version of this one thing and a false version of this other thing. You shouldn't let the players know up front if they're hearing the true version or the false version. You could have them roll a die 12 to see which rumor they get, but on your end, you roll a different die to determine if they're going to get the true rumor or the false rumor. Make a couple backup rumors to replace rumors they've already heard if you don't want them just hearing the same thing over and over again. But it's a good way to hint at quests. It's a good way just to kind of establish just the kind of general vibe and feel of what's going on in the world about them. You can also, you know, by what the players roll specifically, you can then use that to design what adventures they're going to go on instead of, you know, like forcing them into a quest line that they have heard nothing about. You can instead use the rumors that they have rolled as a way to kind of build up a storyline if you want. I'm a fan of sandboxes. I'm a fan of having to kind of improvise to some degree, but you have to, you know, set the parameters so that it's not going to get out of hand for you. Like I said, you want to keep the momentum going. You want to seem like you're familiar with the lore. That's another advantage of being really selective about what sort of creatures you want to include in your game world, because you want to include the ones that you have the most solid footing on in your head of how you want to present them. It will seem like there's more fidelity to the world that the players are interacting with if you're not umming and I don't know and well maybe and then having to stop and like read something out of a book while they're all just kind of sitting there twiddling their thumbs or starting to have conversations with each other that has nothing to do with what's going on in the game and derails the game itself, let alone the adventure scenario. And I guess those are, your key things, you know, just to have world building. Don't include stuff that tonally does not fit what you want. Be prepared. Only use stuff that you feel like you have a solid, you know, idea for. Know what NPCs in a town have information. A good way to get your players to bounce around and explore, you know, your starting village or city location is, you know, whoever that initial quest giver is doesn't have all the information as to how to find or deal with the thing that they're sending the player characters off to. But, you know, early on, especially at the very beginning, players, they just got loaded up with a bunch of starting equipment and stuff. They might not really be in the mood to go spend what little pittance of gold they have left on stuff. But what if the shopkeeper, you know, like because of like you know, they're the trade routes or the traders they work with has some you know, like, you know, information that will help them find the location they're going for or be better informed about like what kind of foes are going you know, to be in their way as they try to get to that location, all that kind of stuff. It forces them to, you know, have to visit locations in the peaceful setting and gives them a reason to talk to some of these shopkeepers that they can then later use when they actually, you know, decided that, you know, like, oh, maybe I could have stood to have bought more rope for the classic Samwise Gamgee example. Don't overload people with puzzles and crap. Like, I know some people like the puzzles and the dungeons and all that. Like, you know, obviously everyone's, you know, got their own vibe. I feel that the presence of video games kind of bleeds off like a need for some of that kind of stuff. Remember that D&D is a game. It's not a life simulator. Choices are less meaningful if there's too many choices. Limit what kind of player races the characters have available to them. Hell, even occasionally squash some of the classes out. Not every setting is appropriate for barbarians and druids to be wandering around. Or if you're doing a city adventure, why the fuck is a ranger there? That kind of thing. Give people a solid initial concept. Don't start them off in a tavern where they don't know each other and have no reason to talk to the ranger at the bar who really wants to give them a quest. Start them off telling them, here's the quest you've accepted. You're going to get paid this much. This is the dude who hired you. They will kind of naturally on their own fall into like wanting to deal with this. If you don't give them a solid opening scenario, because especially with starting off characters, the player's natural instinct is to want to develop their own player character's interests based on whatever background they came up with. And so you avoid just the awkward herding cat stuff. Be direct. Don't drag it out too long. Don't always use random encounters. And I guess that's about it. Just some basic advice on how to deal with all this stuff. Anyway, until next time. Yeah.